How many hours do you have in City Skylines? Like so many players, is your count up to 4 digits? How did Colossal Order create such a game, a community, where hearing I'm at 2,000 something hours and still not bored is completely expected? Maybe you're part of a surge in sales since 2020, which account for half of the total 12 million copies sold. Part of a recent swell showing that this old game from 2015 is still very much thriving. Share your hours played in the comments and strap in for the tale of the little dev team that could, a document of what happens when game developers put their community first before day one, a recap of the stumbles, stakes, and successes of this game we're all so enthralled with. This is the history of City Skylines. First, a quick overview of the game for those not in the know. City Skylines is a single-player, open-ended city-building simulation game. Players place roads, public services, and entertainment in the city manually and set zones for different types of buildings to grow in, like residential, commercial, industry, and offices, while controlling taxes and policies. With all of these tools at their disposal, they can strive to reach population milestones that will unlock more useful buildings, policies, and ways to visually improve their city as they expand, or they can play sandbox mode, having everything available from the start. As the city grows in size and population, more people, or Sims, have to get to and from work and leisure, traffic builds up, and it's up to the player to adjust their road infrastructure and public transit to accommodate. Some players aim for the most realism possible. Some try to reach the highest population quickly. Some want the most beautiful cities. It really is left to the player what to do with the possibilities open to them. Now, in order to appreciate where City Skylines stands now as a game and to have such high hopes for its future, we need to rewind the clock to the before time, the dark time, when City Skylines wasn't even something we knew, needed. No, it wasn't that bad. We had SimCity, right? Let's land around the year 2008. The main city builder of the time is SimCity 4 and maybe SimCity Societies. SimCity 4 was well enjoyed but aging, and many were looking forward to a proper successor in the genre. One game developer hoped to be just that. They had the next big city building thing. That game developer was Monte Cristo. Monte Cristo was developing Cities Unlimited, which would become Cities XL, and they wanted to innovate with a city builder MMO. Players were intrigued by this idea, but also felt familiarity and comfort in the single-player nature of a city building game. Monte Cristo was apparently intending to appeal to both of these concepts, MMO and single player. Cities XL released on October 8th, 2009 and had a hefty price of $50 for the single player version of the game. It had some of the usual city building stuff except for literally any mass transit. If you wanted any form of mass transit, you had to subscribe to the MMO part of the game for $10 a month, and buses would be introduced with it around Christmas, so months later, and no timeline was in sight for light rail. After many bugs, UI quirks, a poor online trading interface, shoddy servers, and lackluster sales, the developers declared bankruptcy in 2010, and fans of the city building genre were left wanting. That is until March 6th of 2012, when EA officially announced SimCity 2013. In June of that year at E3, so still before the release of the game, SimCity 2013 won 8 out of 24 nominations. In August, it won Gamescom's Best PC Game Award. It was receiving all of the praise from all of the people, except for players when it came to its requirement for a persistent internet connection. This was defended by EA with the idea that real cities do not exist in a bubble. They share a region and affect one another. But it turned out that forcing this concept on players that play a dominantly single-player genre of games wouldn't work out in their favor. Now, a quick sidebar. This is a video about City Skylines and its developer, Colossal Order. They just weren't quite in the city building genre yet. In 2011, they released Cities in Motion, a well enough received game that's better described as a business simulator that heavily focused on implementing and improvising transit systems and did not include the rest of what we know of city builders. After Cities in Motion released, Colossal Order did pitch the idea of a city builder to their publisher, Paradox Interactive, but the initial pitch was more of a political game where the player would set edicts and regulations to help the city grow. But being dissuaded by the current domination of EA with SimCity, they told Colossal Order it wasn't the time, and so Colossal Order began work on Cities in Motion 2. Back to EA and their domination of the genre with the SimCity franchise. Don't worry, it won't last too long. SimCity 2013 was released on March 6, 2013, and was met with mixed reviews, which soon turned into poor reviews. It had forced multiplayer, was dependent on an internet connection, broken simulation, and a teensy tiny area allowed for, you know, city building. The developer, Maxis Emeryville, shut down in 2015, and the poor reception of this title encouraged Paradox Interactive to finally greenlight what we're all here for today, City Skylines. City Skylines was released on March 10th, 2015. At the time of recording, it has 158,225 reviews on Steam, averaging very positive and an 85 Metascore on Metacritic. It has 32 total expansions ranging from DLCs to flavor content to content creator packs. It also has 19 additional official radio stations you can purchase to listen to in-game. It also has, at the time of recording, 306,386 entries in the Steam Workshop, aka community-made mods, assets, and color corrections. And as mentioned in the intro, sales are increasing over time. In an interview from July 2022, Colossal Order CEO Marina Halakainen said she originally thought selling 300,000 copies would be a fantastic result, when in actuality 6 million were sold between the initial release in 2015 and 2019, and another 6 million over the following 3 years. So why? Why did City Skylines succeed where Cities XL and SimCity 2013 failed? Let's take a look at Colossal Order's approach to the game development and the community before the game was even released. City Skylines was announced by Paradox Interactive on the 14th of August 2014 at Gamescom. Two bits stood out in the trailer: the advertisement that you can mod and share online, showing Colossal Order's immediate support of the modding community, and that you play offline, showing that they understood loud and clear where previous games had failed. Prior to the game's release, Colossal Order and Paradox Interactive hosted a joint AMA on Reddit inviting questions about the game, them, and gaming in general. With it, we gleaned a few more insights into the company's motivations with the game's development. For the initial release of the game, they were focusing on a solid, bug-free, and versatile core game. They recognized specifics that the players were asking about, like disasters, weather, customizable parks, and ensured that these items remained on the list, but they wanted to get the base game right first. They wanted City Skylines to be deep and immersive for city building enthusiasts, but also approachable and easy enough to learn for newcomers to the genre. Later DLCs would bring more specific and intricate features so that hardcore players could make the game more centric to their own playstyles. They said they were willing to change directions with the DLCs if it meant doing better for the player base, which happened as early as the first DLC, when the concept shifted from subcultures to After Dark, when they realized how important adding the day-night cycle would be. Many of their answers in this AMA did well to both answer the question asked, then in return ask about what the player would want out of XYZ feature. This showed their early commitment to the player base, and to this day, you can see that they actually listened to the responses. Someone asked about being able to name streets. They were told it's not currently possible, only districts. That thread had multiple people discussing how they would love to name streets and rename buildings. Now we can rename streets and buildings. There were, however, some things that Colossal Order insisted were within their spirit of the game and they wouldn't change. Things like our beloved Chirpy. If you don't know what Chirpy is, he's the adorable little blue bird that sits top center of your screen and acts as a much more wholesome version of a certain real-world Bluebird app. Citizens from your city will chirp about events relevant to what's happening in the city. If your crime rate is very low, they'll be happy to let their neighbors know where their keys are while they're on vacation. If you've just introduced green power, they'll chirp about their excitement for the future of clean power. Chirpy has this little trill every time a new chirp is made, and by default auto opens each time, but you can turn that off in the settings at least. On the very day the game was released, a mod was posted to the Steam Workshop called Chirpy Exterminator, and Chirpy was often mentioned as a negative in reviews. Colossal Order would end up just leaning into the sort of meme that Chirpy became and make light-hearted jokes about him in interviews, like when Marina Hallakainen mentioned she knows at least 2 players that like him. Speaking of mods, this is another area where Colossal Order really stood out from their competitors and brought the community forward first. Even during initial development, they had modders in mind and incorporated mod tools into the game. At first, when they only had 2 programmers on the team, one focused on gameplay and the other on these modding tools, and boy, were they put to use. As mentioned earlier, there are currently over 300,000 Steam Workshop entries for the game, where players can natively and easily add these modifications to the game at the click of a button. When searching for mods and sorting for furthest past date, we find All Spaces Unlockable made by Clate45. This mod allows players to expand beyond the vanilla 9 available tiles of the game. Something vanilla, especially console players, will be asking for years. The most popular mod of all time? Move It by Cuboid. Cuboid recently celebrated over 2 million downloads of this mod, and after using it, it's easy to see why. There's a reason it's at the beginning of every player's must-have mods list. So after careful development and communication with what would be its core community, City Skylines released. It was single player and didn't rely on an internet connection. It had modding support from day one. It had an expected DLC path that publisher Paradox Interactive was known for. How was it received? Would it bring forth the ultimate downfall of its developers like its predecessors? It was Paradox Interactive's best-selling published title. It sold 250,000 copies within the first 24 hours. Remember when Colossal Order's CEO said she would be thrilled at 300,000? Within a week, they reached 500,000 copies sold, and 1 million after a month. Suffice to say, if you believe money talks, money said good things for this game. Over the years, comparisons of SimCity to City Skylines popped up online, often favoring the latter. They would cite the larger building area, the easy-to-access community-made mods and assets, the district feature and ability to rename everything, the actual simulation of the citizens and traffic, and quite often jabs at SimCity's inability to be played offline, as seen in this hilarious skit from Door Monster.
Just go offline.
I don't know how.
Colossal Order didn't stop development with the game's release. Rather, they went on to release the aforementioned 32 expansion packs and 19 radio stations. The main DLCs each brought their own way to change the game and were mostly well received. Standing out among the favorites would be Mass Transit and Industries, with others like Snowfall and Sunset Harbor falling a little short. Alongside these larger DLCs were smaller, usually cosmetic packs, often referred to as content creator packs. They included assets made by members of the workshop community, and proceeds from the pack's sales on Steam were shared with the modder that designed the content. Colossal Order has even hired 4 members of the modding community onto their staff, stating that they benefit from this as the modders already have a deep understanding of the game they made and an obvious interest in the simulation genre. A fun note, some of the members of Colossal Order did another Reddit AMA at the release of the Industries DLC, and the top comment chain was about the players wanting above ground metro. This was introduced into the game later with a free update that launched alongside the Sunset Harbor release. 2 years after the initial PC release from Colossal Order, a developer, Tantalus Media, worked with Paradox Interactive to port the game to Xbox One, releasing on the 21st of April 2017. Shortly after, on the 15th of August 2017, they also ported the game to the PlayStation 4. These two console versions of the game included the After Dark content and support all other downloadable content. The same Tantalus Media also ported the game to the Nintendo Switch on the 13th of September 2018, which included content from the After Dark and Snowfall expansions, but no further downloadable content is attainable on the Switch. There was also an educational version of City Skylines developed by Colossal Order in conjunction with the group Teacher Gaming, which was released in May 2018. It includes tutorials and scenarios designed for use in a classroom, as well as ways for teachers to track their students' progress. And recently, on the 28th of April 2022, a VR adaptation called Cities VR was released. It was developed by Fast Travel Games and released only for the MetaQuest 2, though will apparently be being released for the PlayStation VR 2 as well. Through the years, City Skylines has found its way out of our computers and into the real world. In 2016, it was reported that the Stockholm officials used City Skylines to lay out the logistics of the city's transportation system. In August of 2019, 3 Norwegian cities were recreated in the game, and the Norwegian Prime Minister, along with other political candidates, used the game live on TV to help comment on city planning and city policies. And between March and April of 2021, the Berlin Stadtmuseum held a contest for players to rebuild the iconic Wassenbrück, a bridge near the museum that was destroyed in World War II, and its surrounding area for a €1,000 prize. City Skylines has also been everywhere within our online world, sometimes where you least expect it. Did you know that there are people who speedrun the game, playing without mods and trying to reach the final milestone, usually a population of just under 100,000 people, as quickly as possible, sometimes in under an hour? Players from around the world show off their builds on Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit. On this alternative subreddit, you'll even find cheeky memes made from sometimes quite unfortunate screenshots of the game. Creators have been making videos and live streaming the game since its inception. Can you think back to who made the first YouTube video you watched about City Skylines? Even now, a plethora of content is posted daily on Twitch, YouTube, and even TikTok. At the time of recording, City Skylines on Steam has 17,000 players over a 30-day average, almost a 6% increase over the previous 30 days. That's not counting other PC players like Epic or Windows 10, Xbox, PlayStation, or the Switch. I think it's safe to say we haven't seen the last of this game yet. But what will Colossal Order and Paradox Interactive bring us next? When they began development of City Skylines, known to them then as Colossal Cities, they had just 9 employees. By the time the game was released, they had grown to 13. Today, with 33 members of staff, what can Colossal Order offer to keep us enthralled and building bigger, better cities? Personally, they've earned my trust, and I'm keen for whatever comes next. But a City Skylines 2 would be rad. City Skylines was my first city builder game, so I recently went back and gave the old SimCity games a try. I will put the first video on screen right now, but really you should watch them all. Don't forget to subscribe, and gang, I will catch you next time.